Stop and take a deep breath. Thank you all. There being a quorum, I will call the meeting to order.
Now you can talk.
Now you-
Oh no, we have to make our announcement.
Okay, so we don't have to pledge allegiance, we don't have a flag, we don't have to have a moment of silence, right? So this meeting will, later in the meeting, adjourn to executive session in accordance with Mass General Laws 30A sections or subsections 21A under exemption 2 to conduct strategy session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, specifically to discuss and negotiate the town administrator's employment agreement, since an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the government's bargaining position. After that, we will not return to regular session. Now we have one thing, so I'm gonna assert the chair's right to bring forward an item that the chair did not reasonably anticipate more than 48 hours ago, as in the chair didn't anticipate it an hour ago. But I want to put it on here. So my understanding of what's happened is the finance team, including Kelly, were going forward with the borrowing, and a second option of structuring it emerged. And so they're very concerned to be sure that people knew that that option existed, and that they do, in my words, what's right for the town, what's wrong with that if you want. So, and there are time constraints, and we've tried the last time to avoid the situation where 5 minutes before we have to sign, it comes. So I'm suggesting, if we have at least a quorum, that we schedule an extra meeting for next week. I think it has to be early. I'm going to throw out Tuesday because there's a conflict for the FinCo on Monday. No, Tuesday.
Not Tuesday.
Okay, well, let's just say a night to be determined in a moment. A sole issue meeting to have them, the treasurer and the accountant and Kelly, present the two and try to explain the differences between the two. I also, at reserving my rights as chair, at this time, I contemplate there being a time for the public to talk after the choices have been explained. So I'll try and make it clear it's not a public hearing, but we'll reverse. Well, it's not a regular meeting, it's not the usual meeting, but that's my intention. And we can, in the posting the agenda, should be clear that there's a public comment time.
To go over those two options.
Yes. And they are different, and they're both accomplish something, but they accomplish different things.
Do we expect to get some material before the next?
I don't know.
Okay.
I can let you know by tomorrow morning what advance, even if it's just a memo that explains some context.
That would be helpful.
It's a compressed time.
Yeah.
Just to,
I can say, let me say this to the degree that I never pretended to be an expert in that area or anything close to it. I'll characterize option A as being somewhat of less of a tax burden in the next 2 years. But option B appears to be economically more beneficial for the town in the long run.
long term.
Okay? So neither's bad or good, they're just choices.
And which one is the one that we've already approved that we're rethinking? Oh, we
No,
haven't approved it
anything.
this yet,
This is
okay.
the-
It's
Well,
upcoming?
only in the sense that it was, the budget
The debt service budget.
Yes.
was voted at town meeting based on option one.
Yes.
Right.
Okay,
The one that's less than the 2 years.
Lower tax
Okay.
rate, longer term.
okay, so it was option one.
Yeah.
But-
that was proposed.
So there's something that is potential within FY19, is what you're saying. There's some potential change in cost in FY19.
I don't want to get into more detail only because I don't know.
Got it,
Yeah,
got
I
it,
don't know either.
next.
But that's the point, it'll only be a couple of days.
We'll talk about
If there's
that.
something that can be
The next meeting.
distributed, Kelly will, if not,
It'll just be a
time.
very high-level summary memo
Yeah.
so that you understand the context. But the actual numbers, we have to work with our financial advisor to get.
Is that okay with other members if we?
Yeah, do you want to wait to pick the
No,
day, or
we
do you
need
want
to
to do it
do it
now?
now.
Okay,
So,
because Thursday starts the MMA conference.
plus it's late in the week,
Wednesday or Monday.
So this is my, this is.
Thursday
Oh, go ahead.
is the is really Friday, right?
It's Friday, but going in, staying Thursday night.
Oh, you're gonna stay on Thursday night?
I am,
Okay.
because
Great,
the
Okay,
the first thing is at 8, and I don't want to drive in at 5.
So we have 3 days and none of them's into work, so we have to figure out what's worse. So Monday, it's just that there's a FinCom
Yeah.
meeting. And again, I wanted to be really clear after this last week's experience with the planning board. This is not a joint meeting with the FinCom.
No.
The people that, we have a treasurer who's authorized to make this decision, and she's looking for input from the selectmen, and we ultimately are the ones that sign. But I'd love to have FinCom members, or a couple of them, be able to be there and participate to the degree the law allows. Okay, so, and they meet at 7.
7.
That's my fault. Because I'm the one that did that when I was on. All right, well, so that's Monday. Tuesday, you have a conflict?
Yes.
My issue with Wednesday is that the elementary school has a budget meeting, and I'm kind of, we don't use the word liaison, but I'm an interested selectman in it, and they just moved it from 6 to 7 without telling me, but that's all.
Is there a problem with the Monday, though? Is
Just
it
the
that we're
FinCom.
trying to
Just
avoid the
FinCom.
FinCom?
No, the
So that they
opposite.
can be there.
Oh, so that they can
So you're
attend.
doing
We could
it
do
in the
6
evening.
o'clock?
Oh,
Could we do it
in
earlier
the afternoon?
oh, but the FinCom guys work.
or later?
So. you
Well,
could
I can
poll
do it in
them.
the day.
So you said this is not gonna be a joint meeting though,
No, but
No.
we want, there's at
but
least
you
two
wanna
of
let as
them
many of them.
have definite opinions
Yeah.
on it.
Do you know which two?
Well, Shay's one of them.
Because we could poll them to see if they're
I know,
available.
he works at John Hancock downtown.
How long is the
Just an
FinCom meeting
option.
usually go?
Not that I want to speak. As
Well,
long
they
as
were
have
out of here
work to do.
early Monday night.
It depends on their workload.
But you gotta call, there's a chair, and you gotta call Karen if you're gonna mess around with them.
I didn't know when theirs ended, if that's the only time, then we come at the end.
Actually, might work out better before, so
We
that
could
they
do-
could go
maybe
back to
maybe
their
we could do
meeting
a
and
6
report
o'clock or
back.
something, or
That's what I
5:30.
was thinking, maybe a 6.
All right, so can I leave it to you, Kelly, to schedule
Yeah.
what works the best?
Yeah.
Do you believe it would take an hour?
Yeah,
I'm just
Dep-
asking
well,
for
it depends.
timing.
if we're gonna allow people to talk, it depends how many people are there. I'll do my best to keep it to a reasonable time and reasonable comments, but if two people wanna talk, I don't know. I just rather.
But if that's at the end, maybe you don't need Shay there any longer, if the discussion's already gone on, he can leave, or whoever, back to the FinCom meeting.
Well, the funny
If it
part
runs
about
late.
this option 1 versus option 2, everybody's gonna have an opinion about how you should do that, should I pay more upfront and shorten the term, or should I flatten that out a little bit and lengthen the term? Everybody's gonna have an opinion, so there might be a lot of people that wanna
Can I-
talk about it.
There might
Can I
be.
interject, is this group though available anytime on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday?
Just going one, available anytime Monday or Tuesday. I
Okay,
really wanna go to that school.
okay. Just in
Yeah, I
case,
can-
just
I
to
can-
I've
bring
moved
the,
things around.
Monday or Tuesday, I don't care,
Dick,
or Wednesday, I don't care.
I think so.
okay, I'm
As I
just
know.
so that we can
Yep.
at least
Yes.
have something to go by.
Yep.
and once we get this up, we make sure that we let Mr. Spencer know about this, please. Okay, thank you very much. We will proceed accordingly. The next item is, so I asked that this be added because I was concerned about sequencing, not that we were out of sequence, but I wanted to make sure we didn't. So we tend to be concentrating on the budgets of the departments that come under us, some of which are very significant. And just I hadn't been really focusing in on, for lack of what I'm gonna call, our own budgets. And we've got a new town hall, we've got other stuff going on, and we may well have difference of opinions, but to me, there's a point in the budget process where we should be looking carefully at our accounts. I'm gonna throw out the phrase from a needs-based philosophy, and if we think they're not adequately funded, we need to ask for the money. I mean, we may not all agree, but at least discuss it at this table, and when town meeting, they do what town meeting does. there may be some things where we have money in it that we don't. I mean, obviously, one of the big things here is maintenance, and there may be other things. So I just wanted to make sure that we weren't short-sighted in our own account of just like throwing in the amount that was there last year, and then I was concerned that the step in the process had passed. When I got the omnibus budget from our accountant, which I agree is a great piece of work in the broad stroke, but I said, whoa, how did we get an omnibus budget before we ever talked about what we're asking for? So I've been assured it's not too late, and don't want to make a speech. That's what I'd like to focus on. So Kelly, can we start off by you walking through what of those 10 accounts we have?
Okay.
But
They were in front of you.
What you handed out, this is equal to what we got in the omnibus budget.
Yes,
Should be.
yes, nothing has changed
Great.
from the last
Great.
time you got the
Good.
omnibus
Yeah.
budget. So what we're trying to do is compartmentalize various portions of the budget process. The first omnibus budget basically represents the departmental request. So we said, okay, within guidelines, what are you requesting that is a requirement for you to continue the same level of service into FY20 that you're currently providing? Do not assume any new headcount, no new personnel, no new services. Anything that goes above what the guidelines stated, which was essentially zero other, so level fund your other. Anything above that needs to go on a separate sheet, and that was our exceeds the guidelines, essential unfunded. And that was a separate piece of a separate list that was also included with your notes that went out with you with the omnibus budget. So what I wanted to do was just walk through the pieces of the budget that reflect Board of Selectmen authority and to give you some idea of maybe what has changed. So if we think about this more of an incrementalist budgeting stage, we're going to tell you basically what's changed between last year and this year and some just key points. So the first one in front of you is for the Selectmen's Department. This represents our staffing for the office. One piece of, one request that is not in front of you because it didn't meet the guidelines is on a separate request. We're considering that essential unfunded, and that is the addition of, I believe, $2,100 for, based on the ability for us to hire or to have a per diem minutes secretary, notes secretary, clerk, recording clerk to assist Debbie with the production and publishing of the minutes and taking the minutes when we, so right now, just to let you know, I believe that it's in the best interest. It acknowledges that there is more than 40 hours a week for that job, and this was one way that I thought we could mitigate the need for paying overtime to Debbie when she has to work on the weekends to do the minutes. Rather than paying her overtime at time and a half, we have someone else who's available to do it. We worked with, oh, I can't remember her name. She filled in for one of our meetings.
Tinsley? Catherine Tinsley?
No, she works for the Conservation Commission as the minutes conservation agent. So what we assumed was 4 hours a week times 22 meetings a month essentially. So that was approximately $2,100. So that is an essential unfunded request that will go before the board, before the FinCom for their consideration.
Just
Yeah.
one second. So, but the name of that account, I'm using the right word by saying account, okay,
Yeah.
is Selectmen
Department.
Selectmen Department.
Yes, it would
And
be
that-
under wages.
Okay, and it says, in quote, Selectmen Department,
Yes,
there's salary, wages, and other,
yes.
right, so that would be under salaries. Okay, so, do we have that or we don't have it?
We
So
do
here,
not have.
B1,
21, 24.
there it is.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
51,143, is that what you said?
What was the,
So it's not in the budget, so it has to be an added line item?
It's
So
a
you're-
new line
So it
item.
would be an
Yeah,
online
It's
item.
on, but it's on this.
So you're
It's
gonna
on
say
here.
the
21,
last,
24.
Yeah, I get you.
$3,124
One more
is our
thing. There
estimate.
you go, right there.
That's great. Okay.
I would just add my own comment about that. Debbie and I have talked about this, and I think it makes more sense to do this because Debbie's got more important things to do as well as working overtime at home to do the minutes.
Has that always been the situation? Like, has the secretary always had to work overtime to do the minutes, or has more been added to her job over time that's created this?
A little bit of both, but
On
we
behalf
usually
of
Yeah, I
that,
think
I would say a
comp
little
time.
bit of both.
We usually use comp time, but what I'm finding is that allowing that role to have comp time is becoming problematic, because when Debbie's not in, I'm now spending time doing administrative tasks, and it's really not productive. So to me, it was well worth putting the recommendation for 2100 forward. I think this just reflects the added level of the volume of the work that we're doing, the fact that personnel is taking a greater portion of my time as town administrator. It's all caving in, and this was one small way to try and strategically allow other resources to lighten the load so that we can concentrate on being in the office and running the rest of the town and everything else that comes with that.
Did we find, because we talked about it a lot before we purchased board docs, are we finding that there's a savings? Was a big key, that it would save Debbie a lot of time in preparing the binders and having to modify the binders,
I
et
think it
cetera.
does. I think board doc saves her some time.
But not enough to offset this.
No.
Is she finding any
This-
savings?
Oh, well, when we talk about
In
savings,
time?
if you're talking about money in time,
In time.
productivity, yes. Because we're not having to stand over the copier and make all the copies.
But that's not freeing up time in her schedule?
Well, it's allowing her to do more of the more important jobs of the office rather than making copies and administrative tasks, like assisting with the personnel, the insurance oversight.
So those are things she couldn't get to before? and she
They would
can
just
now?
they would sit in the pile until we could get to them. I mean, there's a lot that goes into even just producing these meetings, and so this seemed like one escape valve that I could easily.
Well, that's pretty slick too, because what she does is records the meeting on her telephone, or on her recorder, and she hands it to this girl, and this girl takes it home and does the minutes on her own time.
Yeah.
Oh, so this person wouldn't come to the meetings?
Correct.
No,
No,
Debbie would still be
Debbie
at
would
the
still come to the
meetings.
meetings.
Debbie,
She would
Debbie
hand
and I
off-
talked about this
yeah.
several months ago, and I said, well, you can try that, and she was just experimenting to see if that girl could do the minutes from the recording. And I said, well, you can try that out if you want to,
Yeah.
but I said, you will be at the meetings.
Right. But you
I
can
think
hand it
it's-
off and have someone else do it. The other
Exactly.
piece to this is just the enormous amount of traffic flow in the office. You cannot get to these meeting minutes. I mean, you spend so much time working on the meeting minutes with the phones and the people coming in and leaving and all the workload.
You
It's
definitely need
impossible.
dedicated time. You need to either close the door
Yeah.
or go someplace
Oh,
to
that's
do
right,
it.
it's a
not a
menial,
possibility in
menial
this
task
position.
that takes a fair amount of time,
Yeah.
listening to that friggin' recording.
You know, stapler in it or whatever.
Yeah, the inefficient part of it is that since that person was not there, she has to relive the entire meeting. So she has to listen to the
No
entire
question.
meeting again
No question.
and try to figure out what was going on in the context of it, where Debbie would be able to look at a word and go, I know what it was,
And,
you know?
and that's a good point too, because we're hoping that with the addition of board docs as a tool, that we'll be able to sort of pass off the board docs documents so that you'll have everything beforehand. And if we can minimize the amount of time that the minutes recording secretary has to use, we can certainly try to make it so that we don't use the whole 2100, but this was our best estimate for that.
So staying in this account, on the, I don't see the word other, but they're called expenses,
Down
I guess
below.
that's other.
That's,
Down below is other,
that's this, starting here
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
and so that's all it's in.
All of these were, I'm not saying we have to go pencil by pencil, but we looked at all of these. We didn't just take last year's number, or there isn't anything in here that's really important that is I guess the underlying point for me is, I don't think making budget numbers low, just to make the budget numbers low is sound budgeting. I'm not asking for us to do anything that's not frugal.
That's not the way it should be done.
That's not the way that. So we've gone through these, they're adequately
We've got there,
funded.
yes.
Okay.
Can I just ask what the travel expenses are for selectmen, for $4,500?
That's for all of the meetings, MMA, Mass Municipal Manager, MMPA,
Are they like
travel expenses.
the actual
dues,
travel,
or
not
to the conferences.
Dues are below that.
Dues are below, but travel expenses, one of them would be annual MMA conference and then the ICMA conference.
For
Which is a
selectmen
portion.
literally, or for you?
No, no,
or-
just the whole department.
You guys too.
For you, if you, yes.
Yeah.
Do you know about this? Aren't you going to a conference next
I
week?
didn't know anything about travel expenses. I've been doing a lot of things and I don't get any travel expenses reimbursed. I didn't know I could. I just came around and about these things.
I think we're supposed to use our large salary for those.
Yeah.
Which we
Spend it
didn't
all.
get.
I think the intention for
Consider
that
yourself
line item,
notified that.
I
you
think
can
the
get them
intention for that
reimbursed.
line item when we did this some years ago was to provide her the money to do some traveling, some of it include air travel.
Yeah, that's it.
that's right.
ICMA
Yeah,
is in the contract.
And with that in mind, she's probably the one that uses 80 or 90% of it.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean you can't put in a claim.
Well, that's okay, I'm
We're paying
fine.
for your retirement.
That I appreciate.
not the bar tab, that's the only.
What?
Never.
Okay, so the second, and I find this very helpful, I hope others will do too. The second, see where my mind is.
Not yet.
Boyd's been worried that I don't drink enough and I kind of.
You can't wait to get home to have that glass of
Reception,
scotch.
by the way.
Oh.
Don't forget to ask.
Okay.
Okay, so the second account is
Yes,
called town hall expenses,
yes,
and there's no salary and wages in that.
correct.
That's right.
So this is one of the main things, just so
Yes.
have we, and I'm not saying we haven't, but I want to be sure we've taken into account that there's conference rooms, there's another building, there's,
That's, yes, and that's what the FY '20 increase, decrease column will show you what we've called out.
okay.
And so the first one was electricity. Donna went through our electricity bills with Debbie, and this was our assumption. Again, we're only midway through the year, but we are making our best case guess that we will need that. 13,000 was for town repairs and maintenance. Donna, maybe you could speak to this a little bit more, but I believe that this is to incorporate the additional cleaning. We have to go back, we have to do a contract to
So we're gonna-
reevaluate that.
What account is that? What number is that?
The next one, that down from the 5,600 in the,
What's the number, 52?
Oh, this is, oh, you know what, there's town
50.
repairs and maintenance, it's
There it is,
5205.
no,
52,400.
Yes, 52.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm gonna go out to bid for new cleaning, and because the building is larger, we expect that the price will go up. I can't tell you how much. And also, if there are repairs, because, everything is really under warranty, so bear in mind that if anything happens on the building, it's probably under warranty for this year, but I don't specifically know that.
You have to have a
So-
reasonable safety valve there.
So, yeah, right, and I had a guy come out and it was $400 to switch a breaker, so there's things that I don't know about, or that we don't know about, so it's our best guess. All of these are on behalf of everybody, they are our best guess.
Space-wise, Donna, did we add 50% more
Oh, yeah.
to the building?
It's
In
about
space?
18,000 and was about 8,000, so
Okay.
it's over.
So these are more,
twice.
very much in line then?
Well,
because
we're
it's-
trying, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say that I know that. I don't want you to come back next year and say, didn't you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
But it
We
looks
are-
reasonable
yeah.
since the building
In a
more
transition year.
than went up 50%.
And to the extent that we could look at our expenses from, September to now, it's still a best guess. But the worst case scenario, the best case scenario is we're overestimating and then anything actually will go back to general fund free cash. The worst case scenario is that maybe at special town meeting, we realize that, or by the time we go to warrant, if there needs to be a change, we would be discussing that with the FinCom and you along the way until we get to that point. But right now, we're just making our best case. The worst case, though, would be that we'd approve the budget at town meeting. Next year, this time next year, we realize, oh boy, we underestimated what it would really cost, which would mean that we would have to go for a special town meeting transfer of available funds in next year's, so in the 2020 meeting. That would be the worst case, is if we completely miss the ball, but we're just at this point, we're just looking and making a best guess estimate.
The
Okay,
bond-
so as you all know, there's been for years discussions about the need for, facilities coordinator or something towards the human. And I'm not suggesting we're gonna pull that together in the next week and a half. But there again is some conversation about something. So, like, for example, I mean, one part, and I think ultimately we'd like to have full resources for all town buildings. But my question is whether a first step might not be something just for the town hall. One approach sometimes on this stuff is to think about a contract with a service, not a person who gets benefits and whatnot. And if we want to at least have discussion about that, then somebody needs to do some kind of quick estimate and get it in here.
Okay. You say the word and I will.
I'm gonna try to find some stuff, I'm gonna try to locate a service on the internet.
Yeah.
I've also I know some people around town that might be interested in helping us out for this building alone at this point in time.
Well, but help out in, because they're retired in this, I'm not talking facetious, or we're talking about someone that we pay.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So we have a short time frame. See,
We do.
it's gotta get in here.
Mm-hmm.
And again, maybe everybody's opposed and maybe it'll be turned down, but we need something in here that says something like town hall maintenance service.
That would go on our essential unfunded list with a memo that we can craft and that says this is what we're estimating, this is why.
I thought this
And then
was
we'll
our
have to vote.
essential unfunded.
No,
list.
this is your status quo based budget.
Oh, even
Anything
these
above
sheets?
and beyond, yes,
Yeah,
on
those
that
are-
sheet,
Right,
we would write up that sheet and we would
Right.
add something to the other list of essential unfunded. Because that would be above and beyond what the guidelines were of the FinCom.
No, that part I understand, but I may have invented it. But, but maybe I'm getting confused about this. In this stack that I have in my hands.
Yes,
Are our essential unfunded in here, or there's a whole something list someplace else?
there's a whole list up somewhere else about anything that needs to be voted on it and then added in here based on FinCom recommendation. Now, it's in here in that if it's been called out, it's explained here. But your base numbers here aren't gonna, so this budget does not include $2,100 for the recording secretary because that's on the other list of
That's
essential
right here.
unfunded.
yeah, but it's
I
here.
guess I am.
It's, okay, so it's not on the spreadsheet,
No, I know
It's
that.
not on the
It's
spreadsheet,
It's
but
but
it's
it's
here.
here.
in here,
okay,
yes.
so we didn't put a maintenance person in because we did not
I
want to
know that, that's what I'm
presume
trying
it
to
was.
They should not be in here because it
Right.
is.
So
Even
the
additional.
next step would be,
Now, let's go,
Right.
just go back to the
No, it
selectment
should
for a
be
moment.
in here. Hold just on a second, hold it down
It
for a
should
second,
be.
because I can't do this if I don't understand this. It should be in here,
it will be as soon as this meeting is over.
that's all.
So we didn't know to put it
No,
in.
no, I know, okay.
But some of these are, and I don't know, maybe if something were written on here, just because I'm not as familiar with them, but like these increases for electricity and cleaning, they're not really discretionary. You're going to incur them, because if the lights are on, the electricity is going up.
Right,
But it's
right,
above guidelines.
But it's above
Yes.
guidelines, where this is discretionary.
Yeah, but
Correct.
that's not how this is structured.
So they're
And
all
just-
intermingled together.
It's not discretionary, non-discretionary, it's at guidelines or above guidelines.
Right, but even the above guidelines,
Essential unfunded list.
some of these, we could do without, would be fine, and others we're going to incur whether we want to or not, if we leave the lights on.
And that's what the FinCom will discuss
That's-
at their
they-
meeting.
That's
they
the
can dis-
discussion, that's how you
Right, but
discuss it,
nothing is
not-
noted here as, I guess they don't need to, as this is essential, this is
Okay,
the
this,
discretionary over and above
this,
budget.
this document here, and I'll give you a copy, but this is, it's, I apologize, it's really, this is the essential unfunded list I keep referring to.
Okay, but. you-
I just
you
want to
said
explain how this
but it's
breaks down
integrated
here.
in here.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Right, so let's just stick with what we're doing. So what I'm suggesting for consideration, I think what board's suggesting too, is that we do some quick research to give us a number for discussion purposes.
Yes,
That trying to do this for all facilities is beyond our capability for this town meeting.
No question.
But let's at least get a discussion item
the town hall.
out there, that's unless,
On that subject,
Yeah.
I informally did ask Dana, whose business is facilities,
great.
if he could look around for.
Dana Warner?
He would look around
Dana
for.
Is that who you're talking about, Dana Warner?
Dana.
Dana
Dana
Warner.
Warner?
Dana
Warren.
Oh,
Just informally,
Yeah.
because this is business.
Yeah.
That would be able to, that would be interested in providing services
Great.
to the municipal government.
That's very
So
helpful.
he would potentially.
So Kelly, even if it's a placeholder name?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So can I go back though? I want to understand the structure of it. And I'm going to use the example of the first budget that we talked about, which is the selectmen's. And in it, we had the budget and 2 pages. One page had to do with 2% salaries and the other one had to do with the secretary, $1,224. The $1,224 is new and additional. My understanding is it does not belong in the budget that's submitted as a budget to the FinCom. Do we agree on that?
Yes,
Yeah, it's not
yes,
there.
and it's
I
not.
know it's not, but is that, do you agree on that? Because I
just the
thought you were
wording.
saying it belongs in here.
No, I never said it belonged in the base budget.
It's all right that
No,
it's
it
separate.
belongs,
Good.
I think we said the same thing. I have a very limited focus for this meeting. And it's
I
just,
just,
no, give me a second, I'm trying to answer. And that's to make sure that it appears that we have, and I'm confirming that we've made sure there isn't something that's really needed that isn't in our requests, using a general word. So
and
that's
what I'm
all
trying to understand though is our process, not necessarily the details of a budget, but the process by using one budget's details to describe it.
But
So we
but I
agree
think
that this
is the
budget,
base budget, isn't it? Or am I using?
Yeah.
this is the base budget,
Yes.
That's base budget.
that meets guidelines.
That's
Okay,
right.
good,
Yes,
And it should not be in there, it's a new thing. I
right.
agree with you 100%.
So-
So that's
so-
that's what I was getting confused about.
Yeah.
But this is the unfunded,
Above
the essential, the stuff
This
that's
is above
needed but
guidelines.
unfunded, above guidelines.
yeah.
Which one is that
The,
one?
the
The sheets that you have.
B2.
second sheet.
B1,
The B1.
B2.
And in my opinion, the only way these things come to light
Is by
is if
talking
we
about them.
agree to send them to FinCom.
Right, that's what
That's what we're here
That's
for.
what we're trying to
Yes.
do.
Now, there's a lot of difference though between the first B1 page and the second
wait.
one, in that the first one is included in the base budget, right?
Not necessarily.
It's here.
So B1 is for salaries, B2 is for other. B1 is for salaries, B2 is for other. B1 for the secretary, there's no line item, so we can't add it into the base budget. So it is separated out.
I don't
It's separated out because you can't fit it in.
Right, right.
It's separated out because it doesn't belong
It
there.
hasn't been approved.
Because
It
it's,
hasn't, but it has not
because
been
it is
approved.
not within guidelines.
Right.
Are you saying it is?
That's
in
what I'm
your
trying
budget?
to.
Is it in here already? The
Yes.
21, 20?
No.
2124 is not
It's
in
not in
the single page, it's not in there. And
And it shouldn't be.
it shouldn't be,
Yeah,
I'm
it isn't.
asking as much as
It is
saying.
not.
Yeah, no,
It shouldn't
we're
be
also
because it's
talking about-
not within guidelines.
Correct.
And in our omnibus budget, there is this other, and item number 1 is selectmen account 51, blah, 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 2125.
Correct.
So that's good, that's the way it's supposed to, I just want to understand.
You understand
The
why
difference in-
these are here and this one is not?
Right. I
This
just
is a
couldn't make the
2%
distinction.
step.
Now what, so
Yeah, I just wasn't
question.
making the distinction between this versus this.
Yeah.
But they're
Because
all
that's-
over and above.
Because the 2% is looked at
Yeah.
as a contractual
And don't say
agreement.
no.
So
I'm
we're
not as
explaining
efficient
it.
from under the table, well, I could do that too.
We're
This is
explaining
important,
it.
we all agree on this, the process, not the
Thanks, Mom.
detail.
So contractual agreements are not in here?
No, they
Contractual agreements are in the base budget.
It'll
Oh,
be
they
in the
are?
base
Yes,
budget.
excuse
Yeah.
me. Here's how the FinCom does it. They say, you have an existing contract with Highway, and it increases the budget by this much. Therefore, next year, we're allowing you, in your salary and wages to increase it by what the contract that you signed last year, 2 years ago, says you're going to give.
Right, actually, this, everything.
And that goes into the base budget because the FinCom says you are contractually obligated.
But these we are not, there's judgment involved.
Well-
Now, wait, now that's a different story. So now,
Right.
now we have a question.
Right, that's judgment, so it's not the
Why,
base.
why, if they're not contractual, are they in our budget?
Are these in the
Because
budget?
they're not, they are in the budget.
Oh, they are.
They are.
Those are,
They-
that's why it's so different. Page B1 is one, page 2, there's 2 different B1. They're very different. One belongs in there in the way we talk, the other does not. So this is the first time I think that we're going to be discussing the grid. Kelly, you presented this about a month ago, that you recommended increasing the grid by 2%, and that's what this shows.
Yes.
So, you know, in a
That's where
sense,
these numbers come from.
we should be talking about this because it has an effect on all of the town budgets here, the non-union budgets, library and here, and the amount that it's going up. And the net amount for most people is 4 3/4%, which we've been clipping at for the last 3 or so years.
What do you mean clipping it?
We've been increasing
Okay,
the
that's the rate,
compensation that the employees have been getting.
okay.
Okay. So I think it's worth it for us to, at a minimum, discuss that. How much we think is appropriate for our wages to go up over.
I'm not doing that today, that's not what
Okay.
today's thing is.
Well, that's what I said a while ago.
Yeah.
This only comes to light. This only comes to light if we agree to submit it.
And how much
As
time do we
part of our
have
base
to
budget.
come to agreement?
Which one are you talking about?
I'm
When
talking
does this
about,
go before FinCom?
It's all been submitted as part of the request. It has been submitted. If you choose at this point to take out any of the essential unfunded, we will do that.
My intention today is to make sure that we didn't miss anything in the
Yes.
conversation.
Yes.
Okay, this was not even supposed to be on today's agenda, and I was afraid we missed a sequence, all right?
Yeah.
So let me drive the bus just for this, so that we stay a little bit focused.
Okay.
So one of the things also is, notwithstanding my experience in the
you always
finance
wanted to
committee,
drive the bus, I know that.
and
It does a good
it's
job.
the Jackie Gleason, honey.
Yeah.
So the other thing I'm trying to do is get a handle on, within our department, the
Yeah, right.
accounts, because I always
Right.
really took it from a broader level.
Right.
All right, so far, and actually, we were doing good, was the total selectmen, we identified the discussion point of the $2,100.
Yes.
The next was the town hall expense account. And I appreciate that we carefully took into account, I'll use the same word twice, the larger size of the new building in one direction, the more efficiency of the new building in the other, but that we're doing a really good thorough budgeting job. We're not just picking up numbers from a prior budget, and that's all been considered.
But can I just
let me ask
follow
one
up a little
question
bit
and
on
then-
that discussion?
Just one second, I'm
Oh,
almost done.
okay.
And so, what I'm just trying to confirm at this point then is, like this page that has munis and, you know, we didn't, before it being vetted, we haven't just said, oh, we can't afford that, we don't, everything that we reasonably need to run the operation is listed here.
Yes.
Okay, not to skip over just in the summary, and we're putting in there the town hall repair contract, that some combination between Dana and Boyd and Dick is gonna give you a number to use for general purposes. Okay, good, Dick, please.
Okay. So there was discussion about electricity's going up, it's something that's going to happen. We presumably need to keep the lights on at the same rate. Maybe you could cut the number of lights or whatever. And therefore, it's a requirement. That's not the way the FinCom sees it, and they shouldn't see it. In this sense, we have an expenses budget that includes electricity and other things. Is there anything that we gotta go up in electricity, but, you know, maybe we went down in oil, or maybe we could, because that would be a compensating balance. But the other one might be, is there something that we really want, but we could squeeze through and do without this year, and we'll go up with the electricity? So I think it's very important to look at the whole budget when we say we have to go up in a particular category, and say, is there anything that we can compensate down, either by giving
But
up
that
something or
stage,
that it hasn't.
I totally agree, but that stage, I'm not trying to be too artificial, but that stage 2 or 3, or step 2 or 3, I'm trying to get through step 1, which is, I don't wanna do that in step 1.
You wanna catch everything.
I wanna,
Yes.
yeah, that's
You
what
wanna catch everything, I got you. But the comment was made that you have to, and I just
No,
wanted
you
to
don't.
clarify
you
that you
totally-
don't necessarily have to.
All right, FiOS, telephone, so this is still town hall expense, and it's an estimated phone increase. Okay, legal services, so that's in a different account.
So you're
Did
done
I
with,
just
Where's
jump?
that?
yeah, so you're done with town hall.
I'm done with town hall
I mean, I could
expense.
speak to town hall expenses, but I think that,
But is everything in
yes, and
the
to
first
Dick's
budget?
point, I mean, we've level funded for the past few years and
Yep.
squeezed by. I
Yep.
don't know that there's anywhere that I could, because I oversee it as well, it could squeeze down a bit. I mean, that's a pretty tight budget.
I don't wanna squeeze down today.
All right,
So we're not squeezed.
okay.
So that's account number 2. So account number 3 is cable.
Yes.
Where are you? Where are you?
I just flipped the
Okay.
next page.
Yeah.
Page 1 of 1 pig.
Oops,
Oh,
some cable
look
peg.
Okay, got it.
And that's been at 4,000 or?
Kelly, did you want to say something?
Yes, one question before we move on
Yep.
from the other. The town hall maintenance agreements for computer, I just wanted to make note that that includes a renewal maintenance agreement for the board docs. And just so you're aware, we've budgeted $3,500 for the light version. And in a perfect world, if money were falling from the sky, I would say, oh, does the board want to consider the merits of increasing the version that we have to the higher one? And if that were the case, if it were that important to this board, that would cost an extra $5,500, I just wanted to let you know that an upgrade is available, whether it's this year or next year. If you want more time to see how the light version works, then we leave everything as is. However, one thing you probably need to at least acknowledge is that if you wanted the upgrade to the more, it offers more functionality, that would be an additional $5,500 before we move on from.
Okay.
And that would be on what line item?
That would be in town hall
15,705?
maintenance, right.
15,705?
Oh.
You're back.
Yeah, it's in there,
Yes.
but it's noted and,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
It's noted, so that's all I wanted to say.
Also, while we're back at the expense, because see, I don't know what else is coming, like, okay, the things that we talked about
Yeah.
last night, I want to phrase it that way. Anything that might still be needed to complete, for example, the selectmen's meeting room, conference room, that's, we're counting on either the remnants of the project budget or friends.
Yes.
So that should not be in here.
Does not, I mean, the clock for 126 million?
Okay, well,
I
I
can
already
afford-
pledged that.
All right, well, I
He's
don't see,
paying.
I don't see a
Next.
check. So-
I thought I got out of it.
I think you did get out of
All
it.
right,
In all
Drive the
sincerity, if
bus.
that's unfunded,
so
I will-
I'm
I
saying
will
if they're
do that.
small, I mean, this budget is not that big to hold.
But like, it's not unusual for organizations to have a line item for furniture.
We
Oh,
have
right.
one,
Okay, so where is
Yeah.
that?
so it's on the bottom, and it's office
Facility
equipment.
dude, it's next to that?
No, that's your
No.
computer list.
Yeah.
So in your budget, under
Oh,
the
the budget.
office
Yes, town hall
equipment and
expense.
furniture for $7,000,
Okay.
300, but out of that, I do, and I will tell you that that is expended on computers that fail, batteries in the computer that fail, it's office equipment and not to buy you a TV set.
Or a lounge chair.
I don't have a 75-inch TV set, like the council of aging.
I'm just saying
Lynn,
that
the director.
Paula got that.
How many of you are
dirt
gonna be
sheet.
here
No,
at 1 o'clock Sunday
What line
afternoon?
item
That's
you
all.
Right.
looking at? What's
So
that?
it's-
The lazy boy.
line item 5, I don't know, second from the bottom.
Yeah,
Oh, there it is.
so that's the
That's
proper line item, as
15,500.
much
That's right, I
as
just wanted to make sure we,
the one last item was the website, and if we are going,
no, yes.
this would be the place to say if we wanted to do an essential unfunded
It
or
would go
a,
here.
that would be on this
Right, so
town hall
that's the
maintenance.
second thing that I'm requesting, that the board can support it or not support it at the appropriate stage, but I'm requesting that it be listed. Is $5,000 for website improvement, or whatever the good word is. We may
Upgrade.
never need- Upgrade, we may never need it.
The ESRI ARC,
So,
Going up.
Okay,
300%.
so I will explain this.
Yeah,
All
so
of,
which page are you on?
so we're going back to the list of fiscal 20
Computer
town hall
maintenance.
maintenance agreements. I call each individual vendor and ask what they expect the rates to be for fiscal 20, and this is what they give me.
Did you ask them why it was going up 300%?
I technically, is, which one is that?
The
It's the assessors.
So the assessor is the one that does that, and she is the one that
She can
calls them.
explain that.
I don't call them. I facilitate getting the information, either I call or.
We don't have to do it now, I know Marcus is
Yeah,
not
I
gonna
think we
whittle down,
saw
but
this in some notes
Yeah.
about 6 months ago, that this
Yeah.
was happening.
that this was gonna go up.
Slightly, yeah, I think it was anticipated, we didn't know by how much. And because we're trying to centralize all of these expenses into this budget, even though it's an assessor's department, computer application, we centralize it
Oh,
by
yeah, makes
moving it
sense
here.
Because
This is
everybody
also a
uses
mix
it.
of two things, I believe. It's software that
Yeah.
we pay for and services.
Yeah.
There was an attempt about 4 or 5 years ago to break it into two categories. The software itself, which is the cost, and the service cost, but they're mixed together right now.
So they're coming from two different line items previously and just being
No, it
blended?
wasn't, it was never two, it was always grouped together, but it should be, it's such a big item, and they really they are different. It should be busted out at some point. Could I just ask on the board docs, for what we have now, could planning board or conscom begin to use it? There's nothing,
Oh, anybody
the
can.
3,500, we could implement them doing what we have now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent, then I have no reason to change the 3,500. But we should make it open to others.
Oh, absolutely.
When they can.
We're
yeah.
trying to
Okay.
get
The
familiar with
the
it.
only limitation I see, well, we're gonna get into debate of that.
No.
You
We
know.
can,
Yeah, that's,
That's up to you.
Let's move on.
I would speak to the planning board.
Okay, so did we get back to cable?
Yeah.
yes.
Maybe.
Everything's in there that should be in there, that needs to be in there?
And any reason it's going up 4,000?
Yes, one question, Donna. For telephone FiOS fax for the new town hall building, $3,500.
Wait,
This is still at town hall expense. We did an explanation, but still not clear to me. I don't know if we need to get a little bit more detail on why it's a $3,500. Is it because we have additional equipment and support for them that it's gonna cost an extra $3,500?
that the telephone bills are going up. I think it's an increase in utility, but
Which budget are you on, Kelly?
This was
I'm
the last
just-
question I had under town hall
Town hall
expense.
expense.
line
Okay.
530.
Because we had to call that out, and in case I'm at the FinCom, I need to explain what it is.
Because it says it's for telephone files and fax, so I believe it is an increase in, an expected increase.
That's pretty hefty too, these rates going up, that's
Yeah.
15%.
But we've been level funded for 3 or 4 years, so when you say level funded and the rest of the whole bucket has been covering it, we're trying to.
Realign.
Oh, other line items have been covering it, so
So
that's not
in
an
a
actual?
bucket, it shows what your actual is, so we've been just teetering with it, and last year we came in at 24/7, 41, I mean, then
Is there an actual anywhere on here, or is that?
I can't see.
Well,
Eight,
there it is.
Oh, in 18,
I
okay,
just can't
that's the
find my
actual.
page.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's
Actually-
appropriation, okay.
Actually, I think 18 would be, 18 is an actual. Because that's last year.
Okay, so we
18
haven't
with
needed
18.
really other budgets, 24/7, we have $200.
So I imagine that this one was one, I didn't bring my, sorry. Yes, increase in rates. I wasn't angry at it. Okay,
18 is the last actual you've got.
yeah,
Before
18
you
actual.
Yeah.
Are we ready for the PEG
Yeah.
budget?
That's what we just did.
Um,
Yes, we're already gonna pay.
Okay, so
I did
mind
that.
you, this is a separate reserve fund. Okay, so what I'm contemplating, what I've put into the plan, you know what, is this an extra website support? So I was anticipating that because we need our website to utilize and share the information for cable, and I was finding that a lot of other towns actually use some of their PEG funds to support the website. I thought that it would make sense to integrate even a small amount of money so that we could have maybe a part-time person and I have the estimate in here, so that we would have some way to allow some website support, because we don't have any in-house staff that are dedicated to it. But
Yeah, Bill White
we are
did.
basing it on 2.5 hours a
It
week.
wasn't paid.
in approximately 130 hours.
Is there a sheet for that?
Yes, it's on the one right
Oh,
behind
got
it.
it, thank you. Yeah.
So we called it website support.
He was not.
It's cable.
So how we cover this is we basically do a transfer to offset the budget. So this would be basically paid for with a transfer from the PEG budget, and that's that little franchise fee that you pay in your cable bill that comes to the town as a receipt every year. And so I'm suggesting that we would take a portion of that to help support the website.
Is that the
upkeep.
same what you were using the 5,000 for, Mark, or is that
No.
software?
Remember, doesn't sound like it.
No,
No, it's different.
How big is that fund right now? How much money is in there?
I could get you the information.
I thought it was a lot though.
Well, I think
It was
it's over 100 grand.
Yeah, but we're about to go back to bid on that. So we had enough to pay for the annual expenses and these associated expenses till we're ready to go back and negotiate. So I think we'll be sitting down at the table in the next fiscal year to renegotiate that rate.
Just to understand, the 100,000 pays out annual to Boxford TV.
Yes.
Plus,
Yeah.
I'm asking a question,
Yeah.
plus equipment such as cameras in the selectmen's
Yeah.
and this conference room,
Yes.
right? Oh, okay.
not
We
this
paid for
one.
that
Not
this
one,
year.
excuse me, the
Public
selectmen's
call.
conference. Oh, and the public call.
So we approved that last year.
So that's part of the 100,000.
Yeah.
Order of magnitude, we need 35, something.
36,000.
36,000 for the Boxford television, plus, okay, so
Yeah.
there's a pile of money there, but it's kind of
It's being,
Well, we're
Parsed
we're
out.
utilizing
using it.
it
parsed out,
to
right?
provide the service.
Oh,
Okay.
we hadn't used it for years and years.
It basically sat there for a long
Because we
time.
didn't have any
Right.
camera work that we were
And
doing.
we were black, like there was no cable meetings recorded when I first got here.
So that 100,000 that's sitting in that account, is that used to pay this 37,000?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so, that's an accumulated 100,000 that's just been sitting there with some
There's
kind of
a
growth?
portion of
several
it's capital and a portion is regular incoming receipts, so on a quarterly basis, we get a check from Comcast or Verizon every few years, and they give us the money that helps to support this operating expense.
Okay, so if we use the 37,000 out of that 100, does that leave us with
There's- yes.
63,000?
Yes.
Yes.
Another one. It's-
So this is pretty much a wash, but,
By the way, what's that last item on that, other web and cable expenses?
oh, that's miscellaneous, just wiring. Usually Brad Suite requires some maintenance,
Okay.
you know, equipment.
No.
We wanted
Could I
to make
just
sure he
understand-
had it because we didn't want to have to call a
Right,
special
from what you
for
said,
it.
the 5,000 for the website is for services or for software?
It's for services.
And Mark's
Services.
is software. I just asked him, and I said, is that the services?
So which is it?
It's possible changes in the design,
Okay, so that's
not
services
buying
though.
software.
That's professional services, right?
Right, well,
So
But
this
it-
would cover that?
But that is under the virtual town hall or whatever the company that we have, and that's why it's under the maintenance, because it's part of the maintenance agreement with that company.
No, but the additional Mark is talking about,
Right.
putting 5,000 more in for professional
Yeah, if
services.
it could come, would be
If
great.
it could come from
Which
this.
tends to be a one-time, perhaps,
Yeah.
just for
Oh,
this
that's
year,
an
right?
idea.
Yes,
Is it
it's, what we're contemplating, number
Okay.
one, we may never need to do it, but if we do, I want to have it available.
should we put it through PEC?
Yeah, sure. No, if it's illegal.
Of course,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Okay, I'm sorry if I have things that are in my mind that I'm not successfully communicating. Oh, one, newsflash, Selectman Spencer is ill and that's why he's not here, he apologizes.
He's really got it bad.
One
We're all having a
communication.
bad run, I guess.
Carrier pigeon came in and just, okay. So, again, we have other things I wanna get to, this is working,
Okay.
but I'm gonna skip over insurance, refuse, and benefits, not because they're not incredibly important, and we'll go all the way through, but that's not what I was trying to do today. So I'm gonna bring this to, and this is exactly what I was trying to get, so the next account is Selectmen's Special, which I know no one back to the Pilgrim has any idea why it's called that, but not really the point. So